Well, welcome back to the next installment of Orthodoxy in the Isles. Today we're here to talk about legends. Now, I think this is an important topic because a lot of what I have been talking about and will talk about over the coming episodes is a certain kind of history to which people can be quite skeptical. And the reason is, of course, much of what we're calling history is full of miracle stories and other such elements that do not in any way accord with the kind of scientific approach to history that we take in the academy or that we're accustomed to hearing other than within children's books. The thing is, it's a type of story that we might not call history in the strict academic sense, but which actually illumines a lot of what we should understand about the story of Christianity in Wales and in the Isles more broadly. So this is what we're here to talk about today. Before I even get onto that though, I have to tell you a couple of things. The first is, this will not be as visually exciting as some of the videos we have done and will be doing. And the reason for this is that we've come to a place called St Baglan's Church. This is near Port Talbot in South Wales, right on the coast. And as I was reading up in preparation for this video, I came to understand that there isn't much of a church left. And now that we've actually arrived, I've discovered that there's in fact no church at all as far as I can find. Hopefully, if you're viewing this and you know exactly where the ruins are, you can get in touch and let me know, and I can add them to film at a later date. In the meantime, I'm standing where I understand the actual church to have been, or very close to it, and it's from here that I want to tell you then about St Baglan and the legend around him. Before I get to any of this though, I want to give you a sense of location. As you drive along the M4 between Swansea and Cardiff, if you're heading east towards Cardiff, you see Port Talbot off to your right, and it's a vast sort of industrial complex with great stacks spewing not just smoke, but in at least one case I'm thinking of, fire into the air. I have no idea what is manufactured or processed there, but I can tell you it's less than appealing and certainly less than romantic. That said, it had some sort of aesthetic attraction to it, because I've heard it said, whether it's true or not, that Ridley Scott used it as his inspiration for the atmosphere in Blade Runner. So that gives you a sense for the kind of grief that the region has sort of undergone over a good century or more. That said, legend. There's that fragment of a wall in there. So we're here to talk about the story of St Baglan. And as you hear its details, you'll understand why I began by saying that this episode is primarily about legend, because there's a way in which we need to take legend, and I'm going to say more about that after I actually recount his story. St Baglan, wonderfully, was a student of St Illtyd. We heard a lot about St Illtyd last episode when I took you to Llynilltyd Fawr, and there we learnt about the number of students that passed through the great school established there, and how really it should be considered by us to be a major pilgrimage site, not only for the great holiness exhibited by the disciples who emerged from the school, but equally for what it did by way of establishing and upholding Orthodox Christianity in the West. But one of the students who had been there was St Baglan. And his story reflects the kind of details that we would normally attribute to legend. So, we don't know much about him, except that he was seen by St Baglan, presumably his teacher, and within his robe, that is St Baglan's robe, was a burning fire. Now, obviously, this sounds incredible in the true sense of the word, except that on a symbolic level, as well as on a practical level, considering the time, fire would have represented so much. Of course, we associate fire with the presence of the Holy Spirit, but equally it would have been of immense practical importance in 6th century Wales. Now, even as I say that, I'm smiling to myself because it's just now started to drizzle, and I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I can feel it on my face, and it's a rather chilly day to begin with. So I look forward to lighting a fire of my own when I get home. That said, St. Elfred saw St. Baglan, his student, bearing fire within his robe, and his response was, in recognizing this as a sign of Baglan's holiness, to present him with a crozier. Now, the viewer will know that a crozier is the staff held by a bishop representing pastoral authority. And this, we know nothing about St. Baglan's ordination, but clearly this is a sign of sending out. So St. Baglan essentially becomes like an apostle. He then comes to this incredible, this beautiful area in South Wales, where he was instructed by St. Theodore to set up a church where he saw a tree bearing 3 fruits. So out he set, and he arrived somewhere near this very spot and encountered a tree around which he saw a herd of swine, a crow's nest, and a beehive. 3 fruits, you might say, of immense significance. So what does St. Baglan do? Well, he decides that while this must be the place that he has to build his church, he decides that there's another spot more congenial to him, closer to the water. And so he goes there and builds his church. But then what happens is that the church either disappears into the water each night, or somehow it dismantles itself. And when Baglan wakes up in the morning, finds that the church is no longer there. After it happens on successive occasions, he returns to this spot, where he builds his church and where it remained standing, aside which he inhabited amongst 7. Now, these sorts of stories are not uncommon. Not saying that St. Baglan wasn't special, but what I mean is that the miraculous side of these stories include details that one could find in other stories like it as well. And they're worth commenting on, because somebody who's more knowledgeable than I in the field would be able to dissect it and tell you more about what each detail actually means. What I want to say is that I think we should take them as much as a spiritual history as we do the more empirical scientific history, because they tell you a good deal more about the faith of this land as it extends back into its Romano-British past, as anything else you're going to read. So what I mean is, if I was to present you with the cold and rather sparse details about the life of Baglan, it would tell you almost nothing about the spiritual energy with which this place was infused. But if I tell you that rather remarkable, virtually incredible story about the great saint, suddenly you get a sense that this place was, and dare I say it, even now is, a holy place. Holiness is certainly not something you're going to first think of on your way here. As you pass that industrial site I described earlier, holiness is not the first thing you're going to think when you stand on this rather busy road in a residential estate. But holiness is truly here, and you can see that more and contemplate it, enter into it better when you actually look, as I am now, across the street at the heavy foliage. Not because it's like an oasis in an otherwise stone and concrete jungle, but a wonderland because by stepping into that natural setting, by allowing your feet to sink into the earth, you start to taste what this land is actually made of. And what is it made of? Not the foliage that comes and goes with the season. Not the soil that can blow away in a strong wind or sink out of sight after a storm. It is indeed made up of those things, but only partly. Rather, what underpins it all, what infuses it all, what gives it the kind of life that attracts us and that passes life on to us in turn, is the story of St Baglan, is the legendary history that we find across the lives of these Welsh saints, is indeed the lifeblood of the Orthodox Christian faith.
Hi, and thanks for watching. Before you go, I have just a couple of housekeeping things I need to share. I am an Orthodox priest with a small but growing parish in Cardiff, Wales. I love what I do, but it is made a lot easier with your support. If you enjoy this series and would like to see more of it, please be sure to like each video and subscribe to the channel. And if you would like to get even more involved, you can go over to my Patreon and sign up for as little as the cost of 2 cups of coffee per month. Members of my Patreon receive notification of all classes I teach, the opportunity to participate in the online Orthodox Theology Club, and the online Orthodox Book Club, a copy of the quarterly Orthodox Exchange magazine in digital form, and for higher levels of support, the same magazine in print. Along with these benefits, your Patreon membership will be supporting Orthodox ministry in Cardiff, in Wales, and beyond. So if you're minded, please go to the link in the description below and become a member today.